Welcome to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring the random prompts of Daniel Rosehill as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters. Join us for deep dives into AI, technology, and whatever other random thing Daniel finds fascinating today. Subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcatcher. Now, today's episode.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
Hey, Herman and Corin. So we just did an episode about Suno and the rise of AI in generating music, and I mentioned that it kind of went from being an amusing thing to do, as in a lot of fun for people who just wanted to create fun songs with AI, and suddenly it became really, really good, and like good enough that it actually created somewhat to sometimes very listenable music, and it started targeting professional musicians and producers, and then that's when to my mind at least, that's when the debate really got heated about what's this going to do to artists and the platforms that facilitated this. And it's worth mentioning, of course, that Suno is not the only platform that has a text-to-music model, and there's other ones as well, including one of Google's. But Suno is probably the most famous of them. And now it's become a lightning rod for criticism about... I get their ads on Facebook, and whenever they post something about an artist enjoying creating with Suno, they get inundated with a wave of people who are really, this is going to destroy the music industry, you're killing our jobs, this isn't music, and a very hostile response. And I mentioned in that episode, or I was wondering about how that's actually being played out in the music industry, where at some point it feels inevitable that we're going to have to accept that AI can be used in the production of music, even if it's just in terms of creating hooks or parts of the song, that it's a thing, whether you like it or not. And we chatted about that. Parallel dynamic happening right now in video production. It's quite a similar dynamic. The only thing I would say about video, and I've made some AI-generated music videos with Suno Music and created them with AI. I've made a few actually for friends' birthdays as birthday presents, and they're a lot of work, and they're very expensive. The cost of text to video and image to video is still very high, and they generate only short bursts of content because they have to generate a lot of frames. So it's a very scrappy process at the moment, but I expect and hope that it's going to become cheaper and easier. But for a Hollywood studio, if they need a bit of B-roll, the financial equation suddenly is totally different. They can afford to spin up their own self-hosted, on-premises GPU cluster, or they can just use a cloud, and it's not prohibitively expensive. So I'm wondering, Herman and Corin, how we're seeing that play out again in the industry. In terms of video, I mentioned in our chat about AI music that as a YouTube creator, or formerly at least, it was always a lot of work to track down stuff like, let's say, backing music or B-roll shots. It didn't look that kind of very stock library-like feel, and sometimes AI can actually create ones that are much more fitting with the content. And I personally, well, you know, I'm a big fan of AI. I don't really see the issue, to be honest, in any of it, so long as it's transparent. Now the question becomes if we are going to see a move towards this view, and we're going to see AI used for doing stuff like touching up video, maybe even AI generated video integrated into TV shows. At what point are we going to say everything is using AI to some extent, and it might be normalized? But I'd love to know, Netflix shows, for example, what's their policy at the moment regarding the use of AI for just about anything, even if it's one or two B-roll shots that were generated with AI? Is it prohibited? And how is that debate shaping up in production studios and in the video industry? Over to you, Herman and Corin.
700 episodes, Herman. Can you believe we have actually sat in these chairs and talked into these microphones 700 times? It feels like just yesterday we were recording episode 1 in your basement with those foam pads taped to the walls.
Herman Poppleberry here, and honestly, Corn, my throat is a little sore just thinking about it. But what a milestone. 700 conversations, and we are still finding things that blow our minds. Back then, we were talking about basic image generators that couldn't even do fingers correctly. Now, look at where we are.
It helps that the world keeps getting weirder. And today's prompt from Daniel is a perfect example of that. He is looking at the shift from AI music, which we have covered quite a bit lately, to the world of AI video. He is specifically curious about how the big players like Netflix and the major studios are handling this. Are they embracing it for things like B-roll, or is there a wall of policy standing in the way?
It is such a timely question because we are seeing this exact transition happen in real time. Music was the canary in the coal mine, in a way. It was easier to generate, smaller files, less compute power required. We had that explosion with Suno and Udio, where suddenly anyone could make a high-fidelity pop song. But video? Video is the final boss of generative AI. It is the most data-intensive, computationally expensive, and legally complex medium we have.
Right, and Daniel mentioned that transition from being a fun, experimental tool to something that actually threatens, or at least disrupts, the professional industry. In music, we saw that inflection point where people went from laughing at weird AI songs to realizing, wait, this actually sounds like a radio hit. Now, video is hitting that same point. We are in February of 2026, and the clips we are seeing from Sora 3 and Runway Gen-4 are indistinguishable from high-end cinematography.
Exactly. And the stakes in video are arguably much higher because the budgets are so much larger. When you are talking about a $200 million feature film, the incentive to shave off even 5% of the production cost using AI is massive. But so is the pushback from the people whose jobs are on the line. We saw the strikes of 2023 and 24, but the peace treaties signed then are already being tested by the technology of 2026.
So, let's start with the current state of things. Daniel mentioned that AI video is still expensive and experimental. Is that still the case here in early 2026, or have we moved past that?
We are in a bit of a transition period. A year ago, generating a high-quality 10-second clip might have cost you a significant amount in compute time and subscription fees. Today, the efficiency has improved, but it is still not cheap in the way a text prompt is. If you are a solo creator, you are probably paying $300 or $400 a month for a pro-tier subscription to something like Runway or the latest Luma model. But for a studio like Netflix, the cost of the AI isn't the issue. It is the legal and union-related cost that they are worried about.
That is an important distinction. For a YouTuber, the cost is the subscription. For Netflix, the cost might be a massive lawsuit or a strike by the Screen Actors Guild. Let's talk about those policies. What is the word on the street regarding major studio guidelines?
Well, if you look at the major agreements that came out of the big strikes, the groundwork was laid there. Most studios, including Netflix and Disney, have had to be very careful. Their current internal policies generally fall into three categories: disclosure, consent, and copyrightability. Netflix specifically has implemented what they call the Synthetic Media Transparency Framework.
That sounds very corporate. What does it actually mean for a director working on a Netflix original?
It means that every single frame of AI-generated content must be logged in a central database. Disclosure seems like the easiest one, but it is actually the most scrutinized. Netflix has been experimenting with internal AI tools for things like smart, color grading, and automated subtitling for years. No one cares about that. But the moment you use AI to generate a landscape or a background character, the unions want a label. There is a push for a universal AI-assisted tag in the credits, similar to how we credit VFX houses.
And what about the B-roll aspect Daniel mentioned? That seems like the most logical entry point. If I need a shot of a generic rainy street in London at night, and I don't want to fly a crew out there, why not just generate it?
That is exactly where the friction is. Studios love the idea of synthetic B-roll. It is a massive cost saver. Think about the logistics of a B-roll shoot: permits, lighting, travel, insurance. You can replace a $50,000 night shoot with a $500 compute run. But the policy right now, especially at Netflix, is very conservative. They are terrified of the copyright issue. Because current United States law, specifically the rulings we saw from the Copyright Office in 2024 and 2025, generally says that AI-generated content cannot be copyrighted without substantial human creative control.
That is a fascinating legal trap. If I make a movie where 10% of the shots are AI-generated B-roll, can someone else just take those shots and use them in their own movie without paying me?
Theoretically, yes. If those shots are purely generative and haven't been substantially transformed by a human, they might fall into the public domain. Now, the studios are trying to get around this by having human artists paint over or heavily edit the AI output so they can claim human authorship. They call it AI augmented artistry. But the legal precedent is still being written. We are waiting for a landmark case to decide exactly how much painting over is required to make it copyrightable.
It feels like the music industry went through this faster because the barrier to entry was lower. With Suno, you just type a prompt and get a song. With video, even scrappy. AI video requires a lot of technical know-how to make it look professional.
It does, and that is why the debate in film is focusing more on tools rather than replacements. In the music industry, the fear was that AI would replace the songwriter entirely. In film, the conversation is more about whether AI will replace the camera crew, the location scout, or the background actors. You mentioned the Suno moment for video. We are seeing that now with tools like Kling and Sora. They allow for temporal consistency, which was the big hurdle. The characters don't morph into blobs every 3 seconds anymore.
You mentioned consent earlier. That has to be a huge part of the Netflix policy, especially after all the drama with digital twins. We saw those high-profile cases in 2025 where actors were finding their likenesses in test footage they never shot.
Huge. Netflix, in particular, has a very strict policy regarding the digital likeness of actors. They cannot use AI to modify a performer's face or voice without explicit negotiated consent and additional compensation. This was a major sticking point in the SAG-AFTRA negotiations. You can't just take a side character and use AI to make them look like they are in a different scene. Even for background atmosphere actors, the studios now have to pay a digital usage fee if they scan them and use their likeness in future episodes.
I remember seeing some behind-the-scenes stuff where they were using AI to fix eye contact in post-production. Like, if an actor was looking slightly off camera, they could use a generative model to nudge their pupils. Does that fall under the same policy?
It is a gray area, but generally, studios view that as technical cleanup similar to digital makeup or wire removal. Where it gets controversial is when you are creating brand new performances. There is a lot of talk about synthetic performers who don't exist in real life. If Netflix produces a show where the lead actor is entirely AI generated, they don't have to pay a human actor, and they don't have to worry about union rules for that person.
But they also can't copyright that character's appearance easily, right?
Exactly. It is a double-edged sword. You save money on the actor, but you lose the intellectual property protection that makes the character valuable for merchandising or sequels. If you can't own the character, you can't stop a toy company from making action figures of your lead actor. That is why we haven't seen a pure AI blockbuster yet. The business model of Hollywood is built on owning things, and you can't own AI output yet.
It is interesting to compare this to Daniel's point about the music industry. In music, the big labels like Universal and Sony are suing the AI companies for training on their catalogs. Is that happening in the video world too? Are the movie studios suing the AI video generators?
It is actually a bit more complicated. Some studios are suing, but others are actually partnering with the AI companies. For example, we saw Warner Brothers and Disney looking into licensing their entire back catalog to AI companies so those companies can build studio-specific models. Imagine a Disney-only AI video generator that is trained only on Disney films. That way, the output is clean, from a copyright perspective because the studio owns the training data.
Oh, that is a clever workaround. It turns the threat into a proprietary tool. Our AI is better than your AI because we have 100 years of high-quality footage to train it on.
Exactly. And that is where the music industry might have missed a trick. The label spent so much time trying to stop the technology that they didn't focus on building their own walled garden models early enough. The film industry, seeing what happened to music, is trying to control the technology rather than just banning it. They want to be the ones who own the director GPT that everyone uses.
Let's go back to the B-roll idea for a second. Daniel mentioned that as a YouTuber, he finds it helpful for shots that don't look stock library-ish. Why is AI B-roll better than traditional stock footage?
Because it is bespoke. If you go to a stock site like Getty or Shutterstock, you are looking for a video that already exists. You might find man walking in rain, but he is wearing a red jacket and you need him to be wearing a blue one. With AI, you can specify every detail. Man in blue raincoat walking down a neon-lit street in Tokyo during a light drizzle, 45-degree angle, cinematic lighting. You get exactly what you need for your specific story. It eliminates the close enough compromise.
And for a big production, that means they don't have to settle for good enough. They can generate the perfect transition shot. But Herman, what about the technical limitations? Daniel said it is still experimental. What are the actual glitches we are seeing in 2026?
The biggest hurdle for AI video is still temporal consistency and physics awareness. In a single frame, AI can look amazing. But in a 5-second clip, the man's jacket might change shades of blue, or the raindrops might start moving sideways, or his face might slightly morph. We call it shimmering or hallucinating motion. For a high-end Netflix production, that shimmer is unacceptable. It looks cheap. It takes the viewer out of the suspension of disbelief.
So, for now, if we see AI in a Netflix show, it is likely buried in the background or used for very specific visual effects that are then touched up by a human artist.
Most likely. There was actually a minor scandal last year where a show used AI-generated images in the background of a scene and people spotted the AI artifacts, the classic six-fingered hand or a distorted face in a photo on the wall. The backlash was intense. It makes the studio look lazy. That is the social cost. It is not just legal or financial, it is a brand risk. If Netflix becomes known as the AI content factory, do people stop valuing their original programming?
That is the million-dollar question. In the music industry, there is a growing human-made movement. People are seeking out artists who play real instruments and write their own lyrics as a reaction to the flood of AI music. I suspect we will see the same thing in film. You will see shot on film or 100% human crew becoming a marketing badge of honor.
It is the vinyl record effect, but for visual media. We crave the soul, the intent, and even the mistakes of human creators. But let's not discount the scrappy side Daniel mentioned. For an independent filmmaker with a budget of $5,000, AI video is a godsend. It allows them to tell stories that would have required a $5 million budget 10 years ago. It is democratizing the visual while putting the pressure back on the vision.
That is the democratization argument. It is the same one we heard with digital cameras, then with YouTube, and now with AI. It lowers the floor for who can create. But does it also lower the ceiling for what we consider special?
It definitely raises the floor. If everyone can generate a cinematic shot of a dragon, then a cinematic shot of a dragon is no longer impressive. The value moves away from the visual and back to the storytelling. The pacing, the emotional resonance, the character development. Those are things AI still struggles to get right on a structural level. It can give you a beautiful shot, but it can't tell you why that shot matters in the context of a 90-minute film.
I want to dig into the expensive part of Daniel's prompt. He said it is still very costly. Why is video so much more resource intensive than music or text?
It comes down to the sheer amount of data. Think about a single frame of high-definition video. That is roughly 2 million pixels. Now multiply that by 24 or 30 frames per second. For a 10-second clip, you are looking at hundreds of millions of data points that all have to be predicted by the AI model in a way that remains consistent from one frame to the next. The GPU compute power required is staggering.
And the AI isn't just drawing the frames. It is trying to understand the physics of the scene.
Right. It has to know that if a ball is thrown, it follows a certain arc. If light hits a surface, it reflects a certain way. To do that, the model has to run through billions of parameters for every single frame. The electricity bill for training these models is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That is why companies like NVIDIA are the ones really winning this war. They are selling the shovels for the AI gold rush.
So, when Daniel says it is expensive, he's talking about the thousands of dollars in server time it takes to train these models, and the significant cost to run an inference, which is the fancy word for just generating the video.
Exactly. To give you a sense of scale, generating a high-quality AI video clip can consume as much electricity as charging your phone hundreds of times. When you scale that up to a professional production level, the electricity bill for your movie starts to look like a major line item. This is why we haven't seen AI Netflix yet, where you just type in a prompt and get a custom movie. The compute cost would bankrupt them.
Which brings us back to the studios. Netflix has the money, but they also have shareholders who want to see margins improve. If they can replace a $10,000 B-roll shoot with a $500 AI generation, that is a huge win for the bottom line.
It is. But they are playing a very long game. They don't want to destroy their relationship with the talent. If you are a top-tier director, you don't want Netflix telling you to just use AI for your transition shots. You want your cinematographer to have control. So, the policy right now is very much AI is a tool for the artists, not a replacement for the artists. They are positioning it as a way to enhance the creative process.
Do you think we will see a Suno moment for video? A moment where a completely AI-generated short film goes viral and everyone says, "Uh-oh, the professionals are in trouble"?
Honestly, I think we have already had a few of those moments in the indie space. We have seen trailers for fake movies that look incredibly real. But a trailer is easy because it is just a series of disconnected, cool-looking shots. Making a coherent 20-minute story with the same characters, the same lighting, and a logical progression? We aren't quite there yet. The temporal consistency of the narrative is the next big hurdle.
That is a great point. AI can give you a shot, but it can't yet give you a scene where characters interact in a meaningful way over several minutes without something looking off. The acting in AI video still feels a bit wooden or uncanny valley.
Exactly. It is like having 1,000 amazing painters but no director. You have all these beautiful frames, but they don't know how to talk to each other. The AI doesn't understand subtext or emotional beats. It just understands pixels that look like a person crying. There is a difference between a visual of a person crying and a performance that makes the audience cry.
So, what are the practical takeaways for our listeners who might be creators themselves? If they want to use AI video like Daniel does, what should they be looking out for in terms of the rules?
First, be aware of the platform you are publishing on. YouTube, for example, now requires you to disclose if you have used altered or synthetic content that looks real. This is part of their 24 and 25 policy updates. If you generate a person saying something they didn't say, or a realistic event that didn't happen, you have to check that box.
And if you don't,
You risk having your video taken down or your account penalized. The platforms are under a lot of pressure to fight deepfakes and misinformation, especially with the elections we have seen recently. So, transparency is your best friend. Don't try to hide it, embrace it as part of your creative process.
second, don't expect it to be a one-click solution for professional work. The best AI video creators right now are using a hybrid approach. They generate a base layer with AI, then use traditional tools like After Effects or DaVinci Resolve to clean it up, fix the glitches, and color match it to their other footage.
That is the pro way to do it. It is actually more work in some ways because you are fighting the AI's mistakes. But it gives you a result that is far beyond what you could do alone. You are using the AI as a digital clay that you then sculpt into something usable.
And third, keep an eye on the copyright situation. If you are making something you hope to sell or license later, be very careful about how much of it is pure AI. You might find yourself in a position where you can't actually prove you own the rights to your own work. The US Copyright Office has been very firm: no human authorship, no copyright.
That is the big one. We are waiting for a landmark Supreme Court case on this, honestly. Until then, it is the Wild West. If you are a professional, you should be documenting your human input, your prompts, your edits, your storyboards, to prove that the AI was just a tool in your hands.
It is funny, Herman. We started this show talking about weird prompts, and now the prompts are literally becoming the way we create our reality. Daniel's prompt today is about how we manage that shift. It is a shift from creating to curating.
It is. We are becoming directors of machines. And while that is exciting, I think we both agree that there is something irreplaceable about the human struggle of making art. The fact that it is hard is part of why it is good. The friction of reality is what gives art its texture.
I couldn't agree more. If it is too easy, it loses its weight. But hey, for B-roll of a rainy street in London, I will take the easy way every time. I don't need soul. In my transition shots, I just need them to look good.
Fair enough. Save the weight for the performances and the story. Use the machines for the heavy lifting of the background. That seems to be the direction the major studios are heading to. They are using AI to handle the drudgery so the humans can focus on the magic.
So, as we wrap up episode 700, I am looking at the future of this show. Maybe by episode 800, we will be an AI-generated video podcast. We could have digital avatars that look way better than we do in real life.
Don't you dare, Corn. I like my seat. And I think our listeners like the fact that we are real, even if we are talking about things that aren't. There is a parasocial connection that you just can't get with a synthetic host, at least not yet.
You're right. There is no AI that can replicate the brotherly teasing we have perfected over 700 episodes. They haven't built a chip powerful enough for that much sarcasm.
They would need a whole data center just to process your jokes, Corn.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for sending in this prompt. It was a great way to mark the big 700. It really highlights how far the conversation has moved since we started. We went from "Can AI write a poem?" to "How is Netflix restructuring its entire production pipeline?"
It really has been a wild ride, and the pace is only accelerating. By the time we hit episode 800, we might be talking about AI that can generate entire interactive worlds in real time.
And to everyone listening, whether this is your first episode or your 700th, thank you for being part of this journey with us. We genuinely love exploring these weird corners of technology and culture with you. It is your prompts that keep us going.
We really do. And if you have been enjoying the show, we would really appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your podcast app or Spotify. It actually makes a huge difference in helping other people find my weird prompts. The algorithms are a bit like the AI we talk about. They need data to know what is good.
Yeah, a quick rating or a few words about what you like helps the algorithms realize we are worth listening to. We would love to hear from you. What do you think about AI in movies? Does it ruin the experience for you, or are you excited for the new stories it will enable?
You can find all our past episodes, all 700 of them, at myweirdprompts.com. There is an RSS feed there for subscribers and a contact form if you want to get in touch. We also have a breakdown of the sources we use for today's episode if you want to dive deeper into the Netflix policies.
And you could always reach us directly at show@myweirdprompts.com. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much everywhere else you listen to podcasts.
This has been My Weird Prompts. I'm Herman Poppleberry.
And I'm Corn. Until next time, keep your prompts weird and your reality, well, as real as you can make it.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring Daniel Rosehill's AI prompts, as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters including me, Cornelius the Sloth. Subscribe on Spotify or visit myweirdprompts.com.